Hello, everybody. Welcome to our brand new segment. This is a new thing we're trying to work on, new show here for halftime on the Hudson because we're kind of on a pause right now. We're still trying to make content, but we're trying to do it a little bit differently. So this is a new thing we're working on. It's called Halftime on the Hudson Dorm Discussions. We're going to be talking to you about sports a little casually. We're hanging out in our dorms, just talking about it, just running through some stuff, discussing some of the latest things that are happening in sports. Today, I'm going to be joined by Nick Vete, Matt Spirio, and Zach Musso, the usuals, the ones that are always here. You know how it is. You should know them by now. You should be well acquainted. We're going to talk about March Madness, the NFL Draft, and MLB Opening Day. So I guess let's bring the first one in. Let's jump on over to Nick's room. Let's go see what he's doing. Nick, how's it going?
Hey, Connor. Good to see you tonight. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks so much for joining here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. We're going to talk some March Madness here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's get right into it. Tell me, a lot of March Madness stuff is happening, right? We're almost down to the Final Four. We should know three out of the four at this point. So tell me what's going on with March Madness and tell me your thoughts about it.
Yeah, so right now we know two definitively. The third game was going on right now as you know, I was coming into the chat here, but we're going to have Baylor facing Houston in one side of the bracket. And on the other side, we've got Gonzaga, who was well ahead of USC last time I checked here about 5 minutes ago. And then later tonight, we're going to have UCLA facing off against Michigan in what will be the deciding factor of that Final Four. As all of our viewers are watching this, they will know how that already unfolded. But it's been an interesting tournament, I'd say, the way that things have unfolded, because we've seen a lot of upsets throughout the early rounds. But at the end of the day, the cream has risen to the top at this point, as we've gotten 2 1 seeds already punching their ticket to the Final Four and a 2 seed with another 1 seed potentially getting that final spot as well. So it's been a little bit of a mixed bag as far as the seeding goes. And it's going to be some interesting matchups here in the Final Four as well. What's your take so far?
Yeah, hey, you're totally right about that. I feel like we're going to see the very best right now that are left over, and it has been a mixed bag. We've seen a couple upsets, quite a handful of upsets. I think nobody really expected, but I think from the teams left, Gonzaga's a really great team, right? They're very good, and I think they have a serious chance to go for it. But what do you think about that? Who's your favorite? I'd like to know that.
We got to start with Gonzaga if we're talking about who's left, because here's the thing. I thought this game against USC that they played tonight was going to be a tough challenge for them. But frankly, they came in against the USC team. They caused a lot of turnovers and a lot of fast break points, which is really how, when you have an offense as high powered as they do with Drew Timme, with Connor Kispert, with Jalen Suggs, with all these other guys, you cannot turn the ball over against this team. And yet their defense was the driving force of their victory tonight, without even mentioning how good the offense played as well. So, when you're letting Gonzaga get easy points like this, off of turnovers, off of fast break opportunities, it's hard to imagine anyone can come out here and beat them unless they are playing their best basketball of the season, perfect basketball, frankly.
So I guess my question for you then, saying how, you're saying how good Gonzaga is, and I completely agree with you. Gonzaga is a great basketball team. Who do you think can pose the biggest challenge to Gonzaga? Because you thought they were going to be tried today, and they ended up winning. So who do you kind of see as the best team to kind of give Gonzaga a run for their money?
Yeah, outside, at the start of the Elite Eight, I had USC as the second team remaining in the Elite Eight that I thought could give Gonzaga a run for their money. But the other team who I thought could give Gonzaga a closer run for their money and still could potentially do that is the Baylor Bears, for the reason of they've got so many shooters on their team. Maceo Teague, Davion Mitchell, so many other guys. They've got 5 guards that are all shooting over 39% from the field. That was during the regular season, and they've carried that over to the tournament as well. So if they can have a night where they're shooting well from the 3-point arc, where they're playing well, they're playing with momentum. They're frankly, they just have a couple guys that get hot. That I think is the only way that you can beat this Gonzaga team, because frankly, I don't see a defensive formula. If USC doesn't have the defensive formula to stop them with their size, their zone, their length on defense, I don't know if there's a defensive way to stop them. I think it ultimately comes down to someone is just going to have to outperform them on the offensive side of the ball. I think Baylor's the only team left that could do that.
Yeah, and I think you made an interesting point too when you brought up momentum, and I feel like that's going to be something that they're going to have to kind of rely on is, carrying that momentum, because I believe this is the first time the men's program has made it this far since the 1950s, something around that, right?
Yeah, that's correct. This is, I think it's they made the Final Four since then. This is the first time that they've done that. Their first Final Four appearance since then. Yeah,
right, exactly. So I'm interested to see how much that's going to be a driving force, and it could be not much at all, but it could be a lot. And I feel like, and basketball is very much a sport of I feel like getting hot and carrying momentum. I feel like the only other sport that's really that much about carrying momentum is a sport like baseball and a pitcher, and the team being able to carry a lot of momentum later on in the season. But I feel like when it comes to basketball, right, it's really about being able to carry the momentum that you're building and being confident in the team. And I feel like Baylor's done a really great job this year. So if they're able to fully carry the momentum, trust themselves, trust what they can do, then I feel like they might be able to put up a really good challenge against Gonzaga if that matchup does proceed and happen.
Yeah, and I think part of it too, when you talk about momentum, is just the in-game momentum as well. Of teams go on runs all the time, teams go on cold spurts all the time. But when you're facing an outstanding team like Gonzaga, you cannot afford to let them go on a run and let them get ahead, because frankly, when they go on a big run like that and you can't keep up or you can't make a run of your own after that, they're not going to have any major lull. It's going to be on you to be able to maintain pace with them, no matter how much of an offensive output they have at any given particular moment in a game. So I think part of that momentum is on Baylor mid-game as well.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you there. And it's going to be really fun to see. I mean, this time of the year is always fun with March Madness, right? Everybody always loves that. It's a shame that we got robbed of it last year, but I'm really excited to see how this all pans out. Nick, thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Connor. Hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Oh, 100%. You better believe it. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. Take care.
All right, so time to jump on over to our next person. Matt Spirio, I know, is waiting. So let's go hang out in his dorm, see what's going on. We're going to talk about the NFL draft. Matt, what's going on?
What's up, Connor? How are we doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well. Are you doing good?
I'm doing fantastic, man. It's been a fun week here. A lot of sports news. I've been having a good time. It's always fun when something's going on.
Oh, 100%. There's no doubt about that. So we're going to talk about the NFL draft, right? That's what we're here to talk about.
Yes,
so
we are.
Tell me, I mean, we just had a big trade, right? Miami traded back, right? They traded back with the 49ers, and then they traded back up. So kind of a weird thing there. Maybe tell me a little bit about that, and then what do you think about that?
Yeah, so we have the Niners moving up from 12 to 3. They gave up 2 future firsts and a future third, and Dolphins go all the way back to 12. That's big news within itself. And then the Dolphins go from 12, they jump back up to 6 with Philly, giving up a future first. I think they swapped 4th-round picks as well, something like that. So there was a lot of buzz with Miami at 3 when they were up there. Are they going to move on from Tua? Are they going to take a quarterback? They jump all the way back to 12. Kind of seems like they're going to stick with Tua. Makes sense. All of a sudden, the Niners, who have Jimmy Garoppolo, who's started in a Super Bowl, are now up at 3, which really raises the possibility that we're going to have quarterbacks go first, second, and third overall. Hasn't happened since 1999. And then so now Miami's sitting back at 12. Like, all right, well, they maybe gave up some opportunities to bring in some talent. No, we are going to play with the house money, all the picks that we have. We're going to go back up to 6 and probably get a guy that we were going to take at 3 anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty surprised by it. And I think, well, a couple of things here is that, first of all, the Niners, right, in that whole situation, and this is kind of interesting, actually. So I was scrolling through my Instagram feed, a little side note here. I was scrolling through my Instagram feed today, and I saw they had a video of the Justin Fields pro day, and he had a really good pro day. I think he ran like a 4.44. I think is pretty sure that's what he ran, or like a 4.43. So really solid pro day for him. And I think, first of all, I think a lot of people are kind of forgetting about his talent just because he lost later on down the stretch in that championship game. But I think he's still a great player, and I think we quickly forgot about his game against Clemson. But regardless, underneath, somebody commented on that Justin Fields video of him during his pro day, and it was the 49ers. And what they did, they had 2 little emojis of a hand with the pen. And I was like, all right, well, you're kind of making it obvious that you're probably going to pick this guy. I mean, I think we already kind of knew that. And, hey, we don't really know if he's going to fall there or not. I mean, you never know what the Jets are going to do. But, yeah, I find it kind of interesting because, listen, I still think maybe Jimmy Garoppolo deserves one more chance, maybe. But I guess you could do a whole Alex Smith thing, have Justin Fields sit behind and start Alex Smith. I mean, not Alex Smith, excuse me. Start Jimmy Garoppolo and then have Justin Fields sit behind. So that's going to be really interesting to see. But regardless, I thought that was kind of interesting. Now, when it comes to the Dolphins, I feel like they didn't really need that 3rd spot because you just got Tua, unless you really don't have faith in Tua. But, yeah, I mean, super interesting. And I feel like we could definitely see a couple more trades, especially considering the lack of the NFL draft this year, and with so many games getting canceled because of COVID, I feel like a lot of teams are kind of scared about who can do what. So tell me, what do you think about the draft? Do you see any more trades happening? Talk to me a little bit about that, maybe.
I tend to find that, especially, I mean, we haven't seen a trade in the top 3 in like the past 2 drafts. When it comes to trades, the NFL drafts, like I feel like when it rains, it pours. We have two huge trades happening about a month away from the draft, maybe a little longer. There's certainly going to be more moves that happen because we don't know what's going on. I mean, we're talking about all the certainty of, oh, you know what, the Niners are sitting here at 3 and saying, you know what, it looks like Justin Fields is going to be a Niner. I mean, after his pro day today, he looked awesome. We remember after the game against Clemson, everyone was saying the Jets have to take Justin Fields. They still might. It might end up being Zach Wilson in San Francisco. It might end up being Trey Lance. We have literally no idea. And as that top 3 shakes out, could happen in any order, it's going to create an absolute domino effect what happens after that, because after those top 3 quarterbacks, there's so many offensive skill guys the team's going to want to get their hands on. I mean, you already saw it with Miami. They backed up and then immediately came back in because they know that they're going to want a guy like Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle, someone along those lines to help Tua. And there's a ton of teams at the top. Philly, for example, who moved back to 12. I'm sure they still want a receiver. It was made very obvious that was the direction they were probably going in. They're sitting at 12. They might end up sitting there. They could come back in. If the receivers go, maybe they move back again. There's so much uncertainty going on. Pretty much the only thing that we know is that the Jaguars are probably going to take Trevor Lawrence, and from there, it's a complete crapshoot. But with what you were saying before, I mean, we were talking about the Niners and Jimmy Garoppolo and certain people's affinity for him. John Lynch went on record today saying that Jimmy, they like him a lot. They still have faith in him. They want to strengthen the quarterback room, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Jimmy is not going to be the starter this year. And I would be very surprised if he's not starting week 1. And to be honest, starting late into the season, because the Niners are going to be good next year. They're going to be a winning team. They just are. Kyle Shanahan's system works, and putting a quarterback with a skill set like Justin Fields or Zach Wilson into that system is going to take them from not even a mid-level team, because they are a very good team. They were just injured last year. It's going to take them from a very good team to possibly a very great team in a very limited amount of time. And I'm sure you feel that way as well.
Yeah, I 100% do. And that's kind of like the point I was trying to make with the whole Alex Smith comparison with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes comparison. I feel like that could certainly happen with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think they're happy with him, but I don't think they would mind getting a good young player in this draft early on and having him sit and learn from a talented quarterback, a good-minded quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo. And then when it comes to the Dolphins, I mean, like you said, there's a ton of offensive weapons in this draft. I think at 6, they still have the possibility to get a player like Devonta Smith or Waddle even. I think there's a really good possibility to get one of those guys. So it's going to be really fun to see this all kind of pan out. I think, like you said, I mean, in the NFL draft, when there's trades and when there's a bunch of them, when it rains, it pours, right? I think that we can kind of see that similar thing play out here, that similar scenario where we see a ton of teams trading around. Again, especially as I said, with the uncertainty of COVID and all these players and their talents, I think we could see a lot of teams trading back and trading up. And I really don't know how much it's going to take, especially when you get to the 10s and 20s area. I don't really know how much picks and how much draft capital it's going to take to kind of move up and how many players it's going to take to move up. Really don't know if it's going to be that much, because I feel like teams are going to kind of find a guy, say this is our guy, regardless of his value. We're just going to take him here because we know what he can do. And I feel like it's going to be very much a similar situation. That's kind of going to be the situation this year, which is going to be exciting and totally fun to see. So, Matt, thank you for joining me. Do you have any closing remarks?
No, I mean, I appreciate you, inviting me for this little dorm room discussion. I'm going to be following things as they continue to develop with the draft, and I can't wait to see how this all pans out. I'm very excited.
Yep, me too, man. I can't wait. Well, Matt, thank you for joining us today.
Have a good one, Connor.
You too. All right, next person we're going to bring in is Zach Musso. We're going to pop over to his dorm to talk about the MLB, because opening day is coming up, right? We're pretty close. So, Zach, how's it going?
How we doing? Good. Ready for opening day.
Yeah, you excited?
Hell yeah. 2 days away, It's been a while without baseball. We got 102 extra games per team this year, every night, every day. It's weird to think about it, but, every Sunday, every weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday till October, we got baseball.
I'm so excited. I'm really excited to have baseball back. I'm hoping and praying that my Yanks can finally stay healthy. But I think it's going to be like every year where come June, we're going to be all hurt, and then we're going to have to push through with a couple of bench guys who are going to get us to the playoffs, and then we're going to not make it all the way again. But I'm hoping for different. But regardless, I'm really excited for the MLB this year. We have a lot of really good teams, right? A lot of teams made improvements in the offseason.
Oh, yeah.
Dodgers, Mets, Padres. Tell me how you feel about all these kind of moves, and
yeah.
what were you most surprised by? Maybe what do you like the most? Just
I think the MLB,
or a little preview. Yeah, give me a little preview for the MLB season.
I think the storylines were great. We could just stay there with your Yankees because the Yankees always got the most expectations every year, and it's going to be difficult for them this year because their starting rotation is very banged up from years past. Jamison Tyone comes over from the Pirates, Corey Kluber, Luis Severino, and Domingo Germán. 4 guys they're relying on in their opening day rotation who combined for 18 innings last year, which that's not going to bode well for them. So if their starting rotation can stay healthy with that offense, and Luke Voigt's already banged up, but I think the Yankees look primed to make a playoff push, and the AL's kind of weaker than usual this year. I see their only challengers, maybe the White Sox and the Rays, obviously trading Blake Snell. That's a big loss. So it's going to be tough for the Rays, but I think the Yankees are in pretty good shape. And the overall landscape, there's storylines everywhere. Tatis locking up his big thing. We'll see, as a Mets fan, Francisco Lindor, that's a huge trade to New York. Getting another star on the other side of towns puts the Yankees and the Mets probably as 2 of the 5 best teams in baseball, which is awesome for us as New Yorkers. And I think the Francisco Lindor thing's interesting too, because he said he'd be open to an extension before opening day. We got 2 days for that, and he reportedly turned down 10 years, $325 million. That's a big contract to turn down. And I don't know, I think push comes to shove, we'll see him get a deal, because in New York, you can quickly go from the most popular player in the sport to getting booed every time you step in the batter's box.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that, especially in New York. I feel like New York has the most critical fans in the world, but at the same time, the most loving fans. If you do great, I feel like New York fans will protect you with their life. If you're terrible, they will bash you until you want to move to a different country, right?
Definitely.
So, but I think you're right. I mean, it's really exciting to have both teams be good in New York, and I kind of would love to see that Yankees-Mets rivalry be revived, because I feel like we haven't really had it in a really long time, a really good rivalry between them. The Francisco Lindor thing too is going to be a huge improvement for the Mets, getting a guy like that on their team. So I'm very excited to see that. Who do you think now? We talked about the Dodgers, right? And we talked about the Padres. We talked about the Mets, and we talked about the Yankees. What other teams do you like? I mean, is there maybe a sleeper favorite that you have going into the season that you think, based off what they got on the team, can maybe do some good outside of the 4 that we've been doing a lot of talking about? Who do you like?
Yeah, sure. Well, sticking to the Mets division, the NL East is absolutely loaded. The Braves retooled again. They only got stronger, and everyone forgets that they had a lead in Game 7 against the Dodgers. They were an inning away from the World Series, and it just happened to go haywire. The Braves are loaded. They bring everybody back, and they also added Charlie Morton, who was one of the Rays aces last year. The Phillies, they should be back. Bryce Harper getting paid all that money. He looks re-fired up this spring. The Nationals, just 2 years removed from the World Series, and the Marlins made the playoffs. So that division is loaded. Then in terms of the American League, the Chicago White Sox are here to stay, and they're probably right now, if we went into this, I would say the Yankees' biggest challenger in the American League, because they're just loaded. They had a tough blow with Eloy Jimenez going on the DL, but there's a tough blow for them. But Lucas Giolito could be the best pitcher in the American League potentially. He was red hot last year. They're loaded with Jose Abreu. They're so young. Luis Robert, Yohan Moncada. They're fired up, and a young, scary team. Tim Anderson. The White Sox could be a good challenger for the Yankees, and the American League is much more fascinating than the National League, just because it seems so much smaller. Like the National League is fascinating because I could see any of 7 teams representing the National League. The American League, I could really see the Yankees, the White Sox, and then a real sleeper, maybe like the Blue Jays, because they're so young and they're finally look like they could be the Yankees' biggest challenger. But it seems much weaker in the American League than the National League.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. I feel like the American League has a lot less impressive competition, which I think in a way, like, you made the point of saying that the National League can be completely open season, kind of. There's so many good teams. You could see a bunch of teams making it. I feel like by having such a weak division, I mean, I feel like you can kind of see that too over in the American League, right? it kind of leaves you this feeling of like uncertainty. You don't really know who's going to make that push and get to the playoffs just because of how unpredictable everything is. I mean, yeah, you got the White Sox, you got the Yankees, and you got potentially the Blue Jays, right? Like you made the point. It's just, I feel like, yeah, who knows? Who knows who else can kind of emerge? And I think that kind of makes it really exciting because, you know, you could see maybe a team potentially step up that no one expected and pose a competition to a team like the White Sox, the Yankees. And that's always fun to see. It's always fun to see an underdog step up. And it makes me really excited for this season.
No doubt. Yeah, I want to see if, I mean, the biggest storyline, I think, or not the biggest storyline, but one of the storylines, can we get Mike Trout to the playoffs? I mean, he's clearly the best player of the sport. I mean, the dude deserves the playoffs. And every year, I mean, if you look at the Angels, they're always kind of funny because it seems like they're big spenders every year. I mean, they got Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon hitting 3 and 4 in their starting lineup. Anthony Rendon's good enough to be the American League MVP this year. They have 2 loaded lineups. And I mean, just for the love of the sport, it would be awesome if we could get the Angels in the playoffs, a matchup in the playoffs between like Mike Trout and the Yankees or something, or even anything. The American League West is an interesting division because I couldn't tell you who's going to win that one. The Astros look like they're sort of retooling, losing Springer. The A's just have a tight budget and they're retooling, losing Simeon. That's a down division. But sometimes, like in the NL East and football, sometimes the down divisions are the most interesting one because it's wide open.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And again, you bring up great points. I think the A's showed some talent last year. And while they did lose a player, I still think that they could still show up and maybe impress a few people. I don't think they can go that. Yeah, I don't think they can go that deep. But I still feel like they're going to still show up, impress some people, maybe make a push, make it to the playoffs. And as far as Mike Trout, I mean, I'd love to see him go. Make it to the playoffs, right? Because the poor guy is suffering over there, man. He's either got to get off that team or make it to the playoffs because the Angels have always been a dumpster fire of an organization, and the only thing that's been holding them above water has been having Mike Trout, right? That's always been their thing, is having Mike Trout, and he's so. It's just so hard because we know how good Mike Trout is, right? I think we really do. Everybody knows how good Mike Trout is. He's the best player in baseball, but. I mean, I feel like we just overlook his numbers a little bit because he's on such a terrible team, and like I think we overlook his production because he's on such a not a good team. Imagine if he's on the Yankees, right? Imagine how far a team like that they would go, or the Padres, or the Dodgers. Imagine how far that team would go having a guy like Mike Trout, whose production makes up so much extra amount of runs, and so much production on that team is made up because of Mike Trout's ability to do so well. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see him make the playoffs because he really should be in the Hall of Fame eventually, because of how much of a phenomenal player he is. And I think having that playoff saying I was there in his back pocket is going to be huge for his resume when it comes time potentially go to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, he has all the talent and even the numbers too. If he was on a winning team, one day we're looking up and be like, that might have been the best player we've ever seen. So that should be interesting. Then in terms of storylines, I guess the only division we haven't really talked about is the NL Central. And that's just a fascinating division as well because, you know, the Pirates Pirates might be the worst team in baseball. They have the lowest payroll. They're paying like $44 million for their entire team this year. Trevor Bauer's making like $3 million. Bryce Harper's making around there too. So that's very interesting. The Pirates, the Brewers retooling. The Cubs are even retooling. The whole division's retooling, except the Cardinals look like they could make a Nolan Arenado. That's another like Lindor, big star swinging over to St. Louis. St. Louis could be a threat, but they have some holes too. So that's another division full of holes. So I think all in all, if you look in the American League landscape, there's about 3 or 4 teams I could see making the World Series. And in the NL, I could see probably about 5 teams making the World Series. But I think it shapes up to be a fascinating opening day. You know, we start right off the bat with some Mets Nationals. Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, 2 of the best 5. deGrom, the best pitcher in baseball. Scherzer right behind him. It's here, 2 days away.
Yeah, and let me tell you what, I think that's one of the fun things about opening days because we get all the aces going up against each other, which doesn't always happen, but it's a fun thing to see. And it gets me really excited for opening day, as does your little preview that you just set up for us. Gets me really excited. I'm excited to see all these teams go at it, see how this all shapes up all season long. I think it's going to be a really good year for baseball. I'm excited that baseball is finally becoming a little bit more popular than what it used to be. I feel like it's finally getting to a much better place. I think it's really good to see just because it was for the longest time America's pastime. So I'm excited for baseball. I think everybody should be excited for baseball this year. I think
the
so.
Younger generation. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. Well, Zach, thank you so much for joining us today on Dorm Discussions.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. It was fun having you. So, everybody, thank you for joining us for our very first episode of Halftime on the Hudson Dorm Discussions. We all hope you had a good time. We know we had a good time. It was a whole lot of fun, and the goal of this was to be a lot more of a sports discussion rather than a news rundown or the game show that we usually have. So we're really trying to have a little bit of fun with this, have a little bit more freedom, and we hope you enjoyed it. And we hope you enjoyed hanging out with us in our dorms while we just ran through the latest stuff that's been going on in sports and some of the stuff that we're excited for. So we'll catch you next time, whether it be on Halftime on the Hudson, our regular show, or Halftime on the Hudson Dorm Discussions, and we'll see you then.